final video, hopefully. So what we have is question 21. So the slope formula is point slope, slope, sorry about that, is y minus y1, where y1 is 5, and 11 is x1, by the way, is equal to the slope. This is the slope, m times x minus x1. So now we have the slope value, we have x1 11 and y1 11, so it's just a matter of clicking here, y minus y1, which is 5, is equal to the slope, which is negative 0.2, and then x minus 11. That's it. And we move on to the next question. If you want to pause the video, you can do it now, as I need to erase that and move on to the next question. Question number 22. Whenever we have a fraction, we're dividing. So in this case, let's divide everything on the top times 2x. So 4x squared. And we're going to divide that by 2x. This in effect is 4 times x, right? That's what x squared is, divided by 2x. So if we divide 4 by 2, we're going to get a 2. And we can cancel 1x. X divided by x is 1, so that cancels into a 1. And so I am left with the x here and the 2 from the division of 4 and 2. So 2x. There's only one question, answer A, that has 2x, so that's what we're going to choose. We don't need to continue dividing, but you would know what to do. Okay, so pause if you need to, as I erase and move on to the next question. I'm going to choose A and move on to question 23. Okay, so which type of function is this? This function says y is equal to x minus 3 to the second power plus 1. Okay, so to the second power is squared. A square is at least a quadrilateral. So in Spanish, cuadrado. So quadratic it is because it's a square. It's a power of 2 is square. So quadratic is the answer. And that's it. If it was linear, it would be y equals, say, negative 3x. If it was cubic, it would be y equals to x to the third power, which is a cube, because a cube has 3 dimensions. And then what else? Exponential, the x itself is the exponent, so y equals to 2 to the power of x. That's exponential. So this is linear. This is cubic. And exponential. So the answer is quadratic because the exponent is 2. Not 1, not x, not 3, but 2 is quadratic. Okay, you can pause your video if you like, as I'm going to continue, choose quadratic and move on. And then the next question says that is a function given. We know by order of operations that we need to square. Whenever we have h of x is now 15. So I need to put the 15 wherever x is on the right side. So I'm going to put 15 here and square. Notice that the x does not cover the fraction 1 over 5. It's only the 15 that gets squared. So that means that I need to multiply 1/5 times 15 squared, which is 225. But let's just say the square of 15. Okay, so which option says that? There's no dividing. I don't know where that came from. We don't need to square the 1 over 5 because the exponent doesn't have a parenthesis that reaches the 5th. So that's not right. So the only answer that I have is A, multiplying a 5th by the square of 15. So we would have squared 15 first. again to 25. And so we multiply times a fifth. Let me see if I can just make sure we square first. That's the square of 15. And we need to multiply it times 1 over 5 over 1. And we don't need to make we don't need to complete the operation. We just know it's choice B. Pause if you need to, as I need to. Once again, clear this stuff, choose A, multiply 1/5 by the square 15, move on to the next question. Okay, so as you can see, there are two questions here that are being asked. One is the grade, junior or senior. And the other one is 11th grade or 12th, right? And the other one is how do you travel to school? And so the method is the other question. And this method is being labeled as bus, car, and walk. So whenever we label that and we have the bars, that's categorical. So we have two variables, method and grade, 1, 2. It could have included all grades because that's one of the variables. The other variable is how they get to school. And because we have bars and we have labels on the bars, is categorical, and two variables means bivariate. So that's going to be my answer. Pause if you need to. Categorical bivariate. B is the answer. Number 26. Okay, I need to use the answers that I have as choices to be able to know that what's going to happen here is I'm going to distribute, right? And see which one gives me back the question. So I know that after I multiply the first time, we have to distribute throughout, but maybe we can save some time and it won't be necessary. So I know that if I multiply 7 times 6, 7 RS times 6, that's the first part of the distribution. I know that 7 times 6 is 42, and I have the same 7, 6 in all choices. So I have 42. But what I need besides 42 is an R to the third power and an S to the second power. So we're going to look at the first choice, 7RS times 6S. That's going to give me 1R and 2 factors S. So that's S to the second. That's not what I need. It's only 1R. The second one has RS times RS. And that's going to be R squared S squared because each R is a factor. So 2 factors, exponent 2. It looks like C might be the answer. Let me see. I know that 7 and 6 is 42. That's always the case. And then I have R squared times S squared from this part. And inside we have the 6. We already took into account the 6 and the 7 into 42. And we have an R. So R squared times another factor R gives me 3 factors R like this. R times R times R S squared. So this is in fact 42 R cubed S squared. And there's no other way to get that because this one gives you R squared S cubed. So that's not what that says in here. My answer has to be C. As B cannot be because that doesn't give me 3 factors R. Neither does D. It only gives me R squared and I need to reach R cubed. And we don't need to do the second part of the distribution. So we are done with that. Erase, pause if you have to, as I need to erase. And so continuing, the answer was C, and we're gonna move on. Very nicely. Wait, what happened to, okay. Nothing happened. It's 27, the one that's next. I'm looking at my notes. So. All right, so what is the slope? We need to find a good point. What's a good point? You say one that is on the line, and it also in a corner of the grid. By a corner, I mean that the grid has little squares, and each square has 4 corners. So we're looking for a corner. Right now, there's no graph in there, so that's not it. But if I look here, I have a good point there, and I have another good point there. That should be enough, but just in case we have another good point there. So I'm gonna rise first. My rise is, I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's 5 spaces right there. And then you can easily see there's 3 little edges, 1, 2, and 3. So my slope is rise 5, 3, run. I can eliminate that, and I can eliminate that. Now this one I have a negative y-intercept, but this number, whatever it is positive, because the negatives are below the x-axis. So this is negative intercept, negative b. If you will, this is a positive b. So my answer has to be D, the only one with the proper y-intercept and the proper slope. So it's D. And we didn't have to make any calculations except to count the rise and the run, choosing 2 good points. Pause if you have to. You know the deal. By now, I am going to choose D. Click next to 28. 28 is another question I'm going to skip with number 7. So far we have 2 that we are skipping, 7 and 28. But after this video, there'll be only less than 10 questions for video 3. And, you know, like I said, you don't need to know all the answers to all the questions. So I'm going to move on to, I'm going to put anything in here, like a 1, just to be able to move to next. Okay, so in this case, we have $3,410 in account A and B. Now, A corresponds to X, and Y corresponds to B. That's good. Okay, so A or X is 6% interest. So we're gonna do that as a decimal, 0.06x, because that's A. And then B earns 2%, which is the Y, so that's 2%, 2 cents, right? 2%, that's Y. All right, and it says that Bashir wants to earn at least 196 in interest. So this 2, which is the interest alone have to yield at least, meaning you can have equal, but you can have more because it's at least 196. Now let me look at my choices. There is only one that has that set up correctly with the 196. So I don't need to worry about the rest. I'm gonna choose B and move on. And for the sake of not having this video be 3 hours long and boring, maybe boring, but not long. So pause if you need to. I'm going to clear my drawings. I'm going to choose the right answer, which was B, and move on. To number 30, okay? So what kind of function is this? Let me change the color back to the blue if I can. All right, so this X, this is Y. Y is the rise, so Y is increasing by adding 2. Whereas as you can see from 1 to 2 to 3, we're adding 1. So when we're adding, the Y and the X is increasing because they're both increasing, and is linear because we're adding. All right, so increasing linear it is. That's it. Don't need to look at the other choices. I need to move on and save time. So pause if you need to. But the answer is A, and I don't need to even read the other answers. That's gonna be, say anything you save in time is only to your benefit, even if you have extended time. So especially if you have extended time. So profit is, okay, so let's say, and I'm not saying you do, but let's say you buy a pack of 10 chocolates for $5. That would be 50 cents a dollar. And then you resell for $1. Not that you are allowed in school, but I'm just saying. So your cost is $5. And when you sell all 10 at $1 each, your revenue is $10. So your profit is what you made $5, right? Because you had 5 that you had to use to buy the chocolates, and then you sold it for a profit. Your revenue was 10, so profit is equal to the revenue minus the cost. The revenue of you was 10 minus the cost. So you started with 5, you end up with 10, your profit is 5. Okay, so here we have, this is revenue and this is cost. Which expression represents the cost? Oh, okay, of making one cost. This is also known as the expenses. Could be the expenses. The question could have come up at us in many ways. So like, what part represents the expenses or something like that. But here it went directly to cost. So I know what my cost is right here. So my answer is B. Pause if you need to. I'm going to clear my drawings. I'm going to choose the cost. And notice that I'm not reading the question because I've read it and you can read it on your own time. Okay, basically this is another one where I read the question and I know that they want to represent V in terms of D and R. In other words, solve for B when you start with D is equal to B times R. Because I want to solve for V, I'm going to simply say that 5 is equal to 2 plus 3, and that's the same as saying 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. In that manner, V times R is equal to D. I do that so that because I like my variable V on the left, and here is on the left. So how do I solve now for, if it's multiplying times R, I'm going to divide both sides by R. R divided by R is 1, but we don't normally write 1V. We just write V would be equal to D over R. So here, let me see if I can go ahead and V is equal to D right here over, do I have a fraction or do I have a fraction? Yeah, so let me go back. This is good that I'm doing this because now I don't know how to backspace, maybe there, maybe there, maybe here, maybe here. Okay, fraction first. So V is equal to D over R. Done. Okay, pause as I erase if you need the notes. If not, don't pause. I don't know. You know what you're doing. Now that I'm done with that, next. Okay, number 33 is absolute value. And I have to tell you this. I have to tell you that the absolute value of negative 11 comes out as a positive 11. But also the absolute value of 11 also comes out as 11. It's funny because 11 this way looks like the absolute value of R. So I'm going to make my ones the smart way. Okay, so anything comes out positive because it's the distance in the number line from 0. That's what absolute value is. It's from 0 to 11, which is obviously 11 units. And from 0 to negative 11, which is the same. You count 11 units. So either way is positive because in this case, distance cannot be negative. Also imagine what would be a telephone that is, the size is negative, the screen, the size is -9 inches, how would that screen look with a size of -9? If you put your fingers together, you're at 0. How do you make a negative distance? Anyway, because -11 and 11 work inside, we have to set this inequality like this. Either x minus 32 is equal to 11, because that's the obvious one, or x plus 32 is equal to -11, because as we know, that will work. Great. So let me do the ones the smart way. They say that smart people do that. I obviously didn't do that at the beginning, so I just told myself. So, okay, we're gonna add 32 here, and we're gonna add 32 there. And x is going to be equal to 43. In this case, we subtract. Sorry, did I do this? Did I make another mistake? Which is fine, because we all make them. This is x minus 32. So be careful like that you're copying this twice, not something else. So forgive me if I confused you, but we're just writing the thing without the absolute value bars. And one answer is -11, the other answer is +11. So this one is correct. This one we're gonna have to add 32 again because it's the same left side. So when I add 32 and subtract 11, that's the same as saying 32 minus 11, which is 21. So x is either 43 or 21. Okay, let me see how that would work here with the I guess we're gonna have to go to the keyboard there. I don't see it, but I'm going to say either 21. I'm using my keyboard. Or, oh, there it is. It's at the bottom. When you click on the keyboard itself. So here I didn't click on the keyboard. Here I click on the space and then the keyboard. You see the keyboard going blue. Good to know. 43. So 21 and 43. And we're done. So pause if you need to. By now we're experts on what we do here, moving from 33 to 34. 34. I have a linear function q. Y equals mx plus b tells me that the slope is 2 and the y-intercept is -1. Here, which in reality is 0 for x, -1 for y. Here we have the y-intercept right there, 0 and -2. In this case, we have this, because we go to negatives, -2 is a lesser y-intercept. So the r has the lesser y-intercept, as -2 is less than -1. If you look at the number 9, less is always to the left, even with the negatives. So -1 is going to be greater than -2 because it's -2 is to the left of -1. So what I'm going to do is, is going to eliminate the ones that say that the r is a greater y-intercept. Now we need to compare the slopes. The slope here is 2. The slope is 2. What is the slope here? Well, we could do the slope formula, with the points of 1, 4 and 2, 10. So as you know, this is going to be 10 minus 4 over 2 minus 1. 10 minus 4 is 6 over 1, so the slope is 6. What is it saying? 3 times versus 2 times. Now we start with 2. 2 times 2 is 4. I shouldn't use that x. Because that's what's confusing when we have x's and y's. So I'm gonna use a parenthesis, which means times. So 2 times 2 is 4. And 2 times 3 is 6, which is what we have here. So it has to be 3 times and a lesser y-intercept. My only choice is B. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna choose B, and then I'm going to erase everything. So if you want, I'm gonna put lesser here and greater to the right, obviously. Greater to the right, lesser to the left. For both positive and negative sides of the number line. Okay, so pause. $35, okay. X is the horizontal line axis, and Y is the vertical. So we have two number lines. The Y number line, which goes up and down, like this, 1, 2, and -1, so on. X goes to the right in positives and to the left in negatives, and so on. So we have two different rulers. I'm gonna make one, maybe I'm gonna make the Y one red with the numbers red, -1, -2, -3. So when X is greater than or equal, this tells me it's a solid line, to 5, I'm going to throw a solid line when X is 5, right here. So A and C could be my answers because the other ones don't have that line. So I can eliminate B and D already. Now let's look at the Y axis. It says that Y has to be less than dotted line because there's no equal sign, -3. Indeed, we have a dotted line at Y, -3. That's where -3 is. That's where the dotted line is. Now, because it's obvious what's happening here in A and C, because X is greater than 5, we are shading the 6, right? Obviously, greater than 5. So we are shading all of this. And here we're also shading to the right. Now, for the red, Y has to be less than -3, so below -3. So it's gonna be this way, this way, this way, and this way. Now, which is the right answer? Because this is going down too. Well, it's where the two overlap or intersect. So right here, I have blue lines, but I don't have red. I cannot go above the dotted line based on the red arrows. So this cannot be, because there's no red arrows. And yet the same thing happens below. I cannot go to the left of 5 because it has to be greater than 5. So this have no blue line, so this cannot be. It's only when they both meet each other, where it's shaded by both shades, which is always, when you have 3 regions, is always the middle section. So like if this was your section A, this was your section B, and this your section C, it's always going to be B. It's always going to be right across the white space if you want to. So this is the right answer, A. So take a minute to look at that, but you shade according to what the numbers tell you. This means all the numbers that are greater than or equal to 5. So 5 is included, therefore solid line. 6, 7, and 8 is shaded, but then Y has to be less than -3. So because it's a system of inequalities, we need to take into account where both of the shades meet, not either or. This is and. So where is more than 5 for X and less than -3 for Y? So that's a system, and. So A is the right answer. Pause if you need to. I am going to choose A and move on. Okay, in this equation, we're gonna solve by factoring. I need to make it equal to 0. So x squared minus 15x. To make that equal to 0, I need to add 14 to the right side and to the left side. And 14 minus 14 is 0, so I write it like that. Okay, now I need to factor this, and in order to do this equal to 0, I need two factors of 14 that when I add those two factors, they give me negative 15. So if I chose 1 and 14, 1 times 14 is equal to 14, but 1 plus 14 is equal to positive 15. So it's not that. So it has to be negative 1 and negative 14, because negative 1 times negative 14 is positive 14, which is what I have there. And yet negative 1 plus negative 14 is negative 15. And that's what I have in here. I have a negative. Don't forget that, 15. So I need to use these two factors, the ones that work. So I'm going to write x minus 1 and x minus 14 are equal to 0. Continuing on the other side, this means that either x minus 1 is equal to 0 or x minus 14 is equal to 0. And by adding 1, I know that x will be equal to 1. Also, 1 minus 1 is 0, right? So x is 1. And then add 14 and you get x is equal to 14. These are the two answers, 14 and 1. Because you know that if x becomes a positive 14, when we subtract 14, we do get 0. And whenever we have two factors like 0 times 3, that's going to be equal to 0, or 5 times 0, it's still going to be equal to 0. So either factor, this factor or this factor, can be equal to 0. That's why I have to separate them here. Okay, so the values are 1 and 14, which is what I'm going to proceed to type. I'm going to put 1 in there, and I'm going to put 14 in there with the aid of my keyboard, and I'm ready to move on. Suppose if you need the notes, I'm going to do this first so that we know what's going on. I'm going to put the 1 completely like that. So it's 1 and 14. Now pause if you have to. And I can move on to 37. Let me see if that was one that I was skipping or not. I think it's 38, the one that I was skipping. Yeah, so 37 is a function. Okay, so what kind of function is this? We went over this, quadratic. What is the shape of a quadratic? It's all positive, there are no negative signs, so that means that it's a parabola that goes up. It's a parabola that goes up. Apparently my y-intercept is 20, so for my y-axis, this is the number 20. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And x is going to be here because it's positive to the left. So it's not right. I'm not saying that the x value is 0. All right, so let me erase that. I'm just saying that y begins at 20 and goes up. So the height here, the point for y is 20. And it's only going to go up, and it's only going to go up. So the x-axis, because they're asking me, as x approaches negative infinity. So in other words, when x goes to the left forever and ever and ever, this is going to be rising forever and ever and ever and ever until positive infinity, because the positive infinity is on the top. And for x, the positive infinity, the negative infinity is on the left and the positive infinity is on the right. But for y, the negative infinity only is when you go down. When you go, if the graph was going this way, then you have negative infinity for y. Otherwise, it's positive infinity on top. So as x approaches negative infinity, I'm going to use another color. Let me approach negative infinity. The graph is going to go up to infinity. All right. And as x approaches positive infinity, so as I go the other way, on the right side of the parabola, that's positive infinity for x, y, right, y, wherever y is, it says plus 12, so I'm assuming that y may be over here, I don't know. That's not the point. The point is what happens. As we go into this direction, this parabola is going up and it's eventually growing up, eventually it's gonna, cross on the positive side of x, but either way it's going up, infinitely going up on the right side and infinitely going up on the left side. So as x approaches both infinities, the graph, the parabola is going up both ways. So approaches positive infinity for both. So we don't need the negative infinity, meaning we should cross that, not put an x in there like if it was the x-axis. No, we just cross that out. Let me close it real well. So it's up, positive infinity for both, the left and the right. So let me see if I can have a choice, infinity and infinity, both is positive, okay? Pause if you have to. 38, I'm gonna skip because it may take a little longer, but it's not difficult, trust me. But I am going to go to 39. So I'm just gonna put anything in here, 4, let's say, hint, hint. Okay, all right, so here the question says, how many more high school juniors and seniors, so both of them, so I have to take into account both boxes, choose honey mustard, so than sweet and sour. So how much is this number bigger, which is 48, both of them, than this number, sweet and sour, which is 23. So what I need to do is 48 is bigger by 23 by how many? By 25. So more, 25 more juniors and seniors choose honey mustard sauce than sweet and sour sauce. So I'm gonna type my 25. And I'm done. Pause if you need to. See, this is not too long, and I'm about to do only 2 more. The next one is 40. The graph of 2 functions are given. This is obviously a linear, because it's a straight line. That's a linear function. I'm tired of that color. And let's see what's happening here. X increases by 1. But what's happening in the y here? 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So let me try times 2. Times 2 is 4. Is this times 2.5? Yes, a quarter times 2 is 50. And half times 2 is a whole. So yes, this is growing exponential. Actually, it told me what it was. Exponential and linear. So whenever you have a linear and exponential function, here you're adding. And in this particular case, I believe you're adding, let me see, you're adding 1, 2, 3, from 1 to 8, is 7 over 2. So my slope is 7 over 2 or 3.5. So you're multiplying 3.5, whereas this one, y is equal to 2 to the x. Okay, so if I were to plot this point 0 and 1, this is obviously less. Okay, I'm gonna do the linear graph, very visible like this. And now my exponential function, I'm going to start in this light green or green. So when x is -2, y is 0.25, right there. When x is -1, y is half, so in between 0 and 1. When x is 0, y is 1. They have the same y-intercept. When x is 1, y is 2. Notice that we're still under the pink line. And when x is 2, y is 4, we're still under the pink line. But you know what's going to happen, right? That eventually the green line is going to cross the pink line. Let's try an example. What happens? This is y is equal to, the equation here is y, sorry. The linear equation here, y is equal to 3.5x plus 1. That's my equation. And the equation here is equal, y is equal to 2 to the x. So let's say that x is 6 and that x is 6 here. 3.5x, sorry, 3.5x plus 1. So y is equal to 3.5x plus 1. Y is equal to 3.5. X is 6 plus 1. 3.5 times 6, that's 7 times 3. So it's 21 plus 1. So y is equal to 22. So the point is 6 and 22. Let's see what happens when x is 6. Y is equal to 2 to the 6th power. So when x is 6, will the y value be greater or equal or less than 22? 2 to the 6th power is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, times 2 times 2 times 2, which is another 8. So I have 8 times 8, which is 64. So you see the exponential function, because you're multiplying, will eventually rise faster than the linear. So when 622 for the pink on the green curve is going to be 6 and 64. So you can imagine if I try to look for 64 over here. So this one will, going back to the drawing, the exponential function always, because you have many questions like this, and it's always going to be that, will eventually be greater than. So here the problem is, remember which one is the linear. The linear is f of x. So g of x will eventually be greater than the linear f of x. So it's 8. And as far as my line here, g of x, which is the green one, is eventually going, let me do this. Let me continue going linear this way, and let me continue going green exponential this way. Eventually, this is going to surpass it and go higher. You see, there is the crossover. We don't need to find where that is, but eventually, the exponential function is going to rise faster, as demonstrated by 664 versus 622. Don't be confused which one is which. The exponential function is gx. That's the one that will eventually be greater. Right now is lesser, equal and greater. All right. So the answer is A. As x goes up, the exponential function will always be greater than the linear. Always, in every question you get like this. So I spend my time here because it's important to get this question right, because you get a few of them in this practice, so you must get a few on the actual test. Pause if you need to. I have one more question and then we'll be out. The last question is 41. I choose A. All right, let me do this the easier way. Let me pick the 0.00. So the 0.00 is it gonna be here, or here, or here, or here? Is it gonna be true or false? So I have that 40 is greater than or equal to, when this is the 0.00, right? The origin, 0 for x, 0 for y. So 6 times 0 plus 2 times 0. 6 times 0 is 0 plus 2 times 0 is 0. So this is your 0. And 40 is greater than 0 because I have this equal sign. It's a solid line, so I can get rid of the dotted lines. Dotted lines would be for 40 is greater than 0, but that's not what we have. We have greater than or equal to 0. And because 0 is true, 40 is greater than, that means that we need to shade the 0 so we can eliminate B as written another way. 6x plus 2y, or 0 has to be less than or equal to 40. I know I have to shade under the line when the letters are on the left. So either way, the answer is A. So you need to pause or wait till the end of the video, and I'm gonna choose A and move on because I'm not going to move on. The last video will be for the few questions that remain. I think it's gonna be 6-2 that I skipped, and 42 to 45 or something, but it won't be such a big deal anymore. So at this point, I'm going to erase. I'm not going to move on. The choice is A, and I'm going to stop recording and see you on the next video. Hopefully, if not, you will be okay. You will be okay with the first 2 videos, but you want to do really well, so go for the third one. You're already here. It will be much shorter. Bye.